ever since I've been a kid, all the way up until weeks ago, I keep getting people coming to me and said, you know, I saw you in a vision. I saw you in a dream. You were in my room. You helped save me from a suicide. You helped me overcome alcoholism. You stopped me from using drugs. You gave me advice. I mean, I've been blamed for all kinds of good deeds. Um, I, I, and I don't know. But um, I was on a woman's show, Holly Campbell. She had a radio show in Chicago a number of years ago, over a decade ago. And I was kind of bemoaning the fact that all these people, they get crazy around me. They all claim certain things. And I told her, I said, just the other night, this lady claimed that I was in her bedroom helping her overcome her alcoholism and depression and all that stuff. And we went off the air to a commercial or a break or something. And she goes, that's not crazy at all. You were in my room. So it's like, okay, fine. So these things have been happening. I'll give you a couple events, and then I'm going to take you to something that kind of ties it all together. Some of the more dramatic things were, I got a call in the middle of the night from a welfare worker, somebody off duty at 10 o'clock at night. Why they were calling me, I don't know. I had nothing to do with anything they were doing other than I was working with foster kids at the time. And she called me up and she said, Mr. McDonald, we have this young girl out there, this black girl that's 17 years old, and she's been, physically abused by her father. She's ran away from home. She's over in Sacramento at this address. We don't have the resources or the whatever to take care of it. And I'm thinking, she works for the state. She works for the government. Why would they have the resources, right? So I'm thinking, I got this telephone call for a reason. So I said, well, what's the address? And I took the address down. The address didn't feel right, but I took it down. I got in my pickup truck. It was about 11:30 at night. It was one of those winter cold nights in Sacramento where there's a fog, so it was pretty foggy. I drive to within sight of where the address was at, and I saw a police car parked in a shopping mall, and I pulled in next to it, and I got out and I showed them my ID, told them what I was looking for, I gave them the address, and they looked it up and said, there ain't no such address. I said, well, it's apartment 2, and it's on the street. And there was like 50 apartment buildings on the street. And the cops go, you know what, we'll help you find her. So they went to 2 or 3 right off the get-go, and they found that she was at one of them. So they let her come with me, and I said, well, you're going to come with me. I'm going to take you to my house. Do you feel comfortable with that? You don't know me. She says, oh, no. She says, I know you well. She was 17. She says, I've been having visions of you, and you've been visiting me since I've been 13 years old. So I feel very comfortable going in your car with your truck, actually. I said, okay. So, a lot of kids I dealt with back then, foster kids and kids who were runaways and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, they all got an angle, a con game is this. I didn't know if it was a con game or what. So I brought her back to my house, and she sat on the sofa in my front room. And she's sitting there, my cat's sitting at the other end of the sofa. And all of a sudden, my cat's hair goes up. I mean, just like electricity. And the cat jumps up and makes a sound and jumps off the sofa. And where the sofa's not occupied, the cushion is down like somebody's sitting in it. She looks over and says, you have a visitor sitting there. I mean, it's just 17-year-old runaway girl, right? I said, oh, really? She goes, yeah. I said, well, okay, it's not going to harm us. Oh, no, it's good. I said, okay. So then I was talking to her, and she was not really bright in worldly things. I mean, you could tell she wasn't schooled. She didn't have great vocabulary. But my gosh, in the most simplistic language, she was so philosophically, spiritually in tuned to things. I mean, she was talking about concepts and things without using the super words or nothing, but in her own words, childlike. So I put her in my old meditation room, which had a Murphy bed, pulls down. And I said, you can sleep here for the night. The next morning, she wakes up and she comes to see me and she says, wow, a really unique thing happened last night. And I said, oh, what? She says, well, when I was getting ready to go to bed, your mother came and tucked me in bed. And I felt so loved. And I said, my mother? She says, yeah. She had an orange robe of some kind on, long black hair. And I said, just a minute. And I picked up a book of autobiography of a yogi, and I showed her the book cover. She says, yeah, that's her. And I said, no, that's Yogananda. So I told her about Yogananda. And I was only going to be able to have her for a few days before the authorities were going to have to take her, place her someplace. And so later on, she's in there sitting on my old meditation area, and something was pressing on her thigh. Something like, not painful, but something was pressed on her thigh. And then it's like when you lay on sheets and blankets and the creases show on your body, you know, on your skin, you could tell you were laying on something. She looked down at her thigh, and it was an owl. It was an outline of an owl on her leg. She had no clue what it was. She talked about it, and I go, really? She didn't know about my connection with owls. So that was an unusual story. It got even more crazy. More things happened. But that's just kind of an opening the door, because a couple weeks later, I'm having these dreams, and I wake up from these dreams, and it's like I got this biblical passage running through my mind. You know, beware of angels or strangers, because they be angels in disguise. You know, that old passage about entertaining strangers. And I kept, every time I'd go to a bookstore or I went to my dentist, and in the dentist's office, I'd pick up a guidepost magazine, and that's the page I turned to. It's talking about that passage from the Bible. I go into a bookstore, a random pile of books on sale for $2. I picked up a book, opened it up, and random quote sitting there on the page. I think it was Sun Signs, old book. And so I thought, something's up. I got to be prepared for meeting a stranger and taking care of them. So 4 or 5 days later, I'm at work for the Postal Service, management job. And then in the middle of the morning, I just walk off the job. I tell everybody, my boss, I'm going home. Nobody asked me, why are you going home? Are you leaving leave? Are you sick? What's going on? It's just, I get up and leave, because I knew I had to leave right then. Something was waiting for me. It was a rainy day in Sacramento. So I got my pickup. I started driving home, driving down 99. Just when I got by the Kaiser Hospital on 99, there's a young guy hitchhiking outside the road. I didn't know it at the time, but when I talked to him after I picked him up, he was 22 years old. He was a former foster child who, once you get to be 18, you're out of the system, you're on your own. And he had no real family, so he went to his grandmother's on the coast of California by Eureka or someplace. And he was staying with her for a couple of years. And then she died on him. And so he had nothing. So he was trying to find his father. I don't know if it was stepfather, real father, but his father. He called him his father. And his father was in Texas, and all he had was like a city. So he was hitchhiking. So when I picked him up, he was soaking wet. He had a short sleeve shirt on with gloves. His gloves were socks. Put a pair of socks on each hand for gloves, and they were all wet. He smelled pretty bad. He'd been on the road hitchhiking for a couple of weeks. He had no money. He had no equipment. He had nothing. So he tells me he's going to Texas. I said, well, you know, I'm only going about 4 or 5 miles down the road, but come on with me. Go to my house. So he hops in the truck, and I bring him home. Of course, my family's going, you bring a stranger to the house, right? So I take him to the restroom. I said, hey, here's a shower. Here's clean towels. Give me all your dirty stuff. I'll laundry them, and we will take care of you. So he goes in there and he showers. While he's cleaning up, I get one of my backpacks. I put clean underwear, clean socks, a jacket, a sweatshirt. I put camping equipment in there, flashlights. I put all kinds of stuff you need if you're going to be on the road a while. I mean, it was packed. I even put food in there and some money. And so when he came out, I gave him a set of clothes and threw his away because they were terrible. He sat down and I was feeding him. I think I was feeding him peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something I had around the house, a glass of milk. And he starts to tell me this story. And he tells me how lonely he's been, how he felt unloved. Remember we talked the other day about love? When you don't have love in your life, it's a killer. And he had spent the night camping in an open field pretty close to where I picked him up. He was in a sleeping bag, cotton sleeping bag of some kind. And when the rain came, there was lightning and thunder, and the rain came down. It totally soaked his sleeping bag, and he had to throw it away. And he was chilled, and he was sitting there, and he was basically crying. And in his own words, because he didn't use the same language I'm using, but basically he was telling me that he didn't want to live. He was going to commit suicide. And while he was having these thoughts of ending it all to get rid of the pain, and he's continuing that story, he says, and a man came to me, looked exactly like you did, dressed exactly like that. And I stopped him. I said, and he said, God loves you. Then he broke down and cried, because apparently that's what I supposedly said to him. And then I said, well, some people think I'm psychic, but when I give you this and put it in your hand, then you will know that what you saw yesterday was true. I didn't even know what I was going to do. That's what I said, because I just go with what comes through. And so I reach in this drawer and I pick out a pack of sugarless gum, half used, it's half gone. Wasn't even a new pack. And I pick it up like I know what I'm doing, have it in my hand, and I put it in his hand, and I said, now you'll understand. Whether I understood it or not wasn't important, because I'm going, if I thought about it, that wasn't a logical thing to do. But I give him this pack of gum, and then he just goes, he says, and the man did exactly that. It's exactly what he gave me. I said, well, you keep it. So I've prayed for that guy since the 1990s, early 1990, I think it was, to this date. So that's 20 some, almost 30 years. So that was another guy. And then I had a Catholic priest, Father Jack Loyola. I don't think he minded me using his name. And he was a minister, a priest in the Santa Clara Diocese, or maybe it's the San Jose Diocese. He was in the Santa Clara Church over on Lawrence Road. It was Lawrence, St. Lawrence Church. And I met him in an unusual fashion. I was visiting my brother-in-law and sister-in-law at their house for Thanksgiving Day. And I showed up there dressed Levi's, casual. And I'm in my 40s. And my brother-in-law are standing outside the house. I was talking to him because my brother-in-law at the time was stage 4 cancer. He was dying. He only had 6 months to live. As it turned out, he only had 2.5, 3 months to live. But we're talking, and this guy on a Harley Davidson pulls up. It's a priest. I'm going, oh, that's really cool. Priest pulls into his driveway. It's his parish priest. He'd come by to visit several of the people in the parish that were having issues and stuff for the holidays, just bless them and leave. But he gets off his motorcycle and he walks right over to me. He's a little shorter than me. He looks me right in the face and he goes, you're a priest, aren't you? And so I thought, I'll tease him back. I said, yes, but not in this lifetime, past lifetimes. And he says, yes, and I know exactly who. So I didn't throw him off. And then he looks at me and he looks at my leg and he points to it and he touches it and he says, that leg's shorter than the other, isn't it? I go, yeah. Only my wife basically knows that, and chiropractor. Danny, I don't think you even know one leg is shorter than the other. I don't think I've ever told you that. So he's saying that to me, standing perfectly still on the lawn, not walking. So then he goes, I need to talk to you. I have a message for you. I've been looking for you since I've been 4 years old. You've been visiting me. And you got to realize the guy's 6 months older than I am. So when he's 4.5, I'm only about 4 myself. But he was seeing me as he met me there as a 40-some-year-old man. And he said he'd been having visions of me and dreaming about me from that point forward. And he spent his life, searching for me. And he came to California. He was on Long Island when he was in a foster care system. And he came out, joined the Army, went to Vietnam, got there right after I left. He came to Sacramento just before I got there. I get to Sacramento. He goes to San Jose, where I just moved from. So it was like, I kept looking at his track record. We were just missing each other until that moment. And I said, well, what do you got for me? He said, well, I have a message for you. And I've been waiting this much time to deliver it to you. And so we went private, delivered that message. We could talk about that some other time, but it was a message. But he claims to this day that I was visiting him for all those years. And the list of people just kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper. People from Japan, people from Mexico, people from Canada, people from Germany, people from all the, well, I don't know if every state, but many states. They would be coming forward when I meet them. And they'd say, oh, they're saying, oh, I just seen your YouTube. I know you, I've seen you before, deja vu. I've heard that before, you've been with me. So that's been kind of the crux of what's going on. So I had that great question. I'm going, how can all these people claim all these things about what I am doing and I'm visiting them and I'm there for them when they're claiming that I'm doing this? All I have is a total darkness. In other words, I go into the darkest, deepest sleep. And then I wake up and, days later people say things, but during that sleep, I don't come back with any memories or anything. I haven't dreamt. I don't remember any dreams. I don't remember any out-of-body experiences. So that was my question. And I went to Southern California to a city of Venice Beach along the coast there. And I was staying at a Vietnam vet's house. I went there to edit a Vietnam film of my return trip to Vietnam, which I still haven't finished, incomplete. But I was there because he was putting the music to it. And he said, well, spend the night and we'll talk tomorrow. I said, great. So I'm staying in this room and it's got a king-size bed and it's got sliding glass doors, which one of them is totally open. It's just got a screen to the backyard. Now we're talking about Venice Beach where there's people all over the neighborhood doing drugs and things. You just don't leave your back door open, right? Somebody coming over the fence. So at just before around 4 o'clock, between 3:30, 3:40, just before 4, right in that time, Shiva hour. I wake up and I sit up and I look right out at the window and there's screen doors there. And on the other side of the screen door is this dark shadow of a person, a man, standing there. And as crazy as this sound, you think a normal reaction would be like, what's this? Is this a burglar? What's going on? You get, nothing. It was, okay, well, maybe that's my friend. Maybe his wife kicked him out of the bedroom and, who knows? I'm watching it. Slide door opens, comes in. I see this dark man coming towards the bed. I think, well, this is getting weird. If he's going to sleep in this bed, I take that other pillow and I throw it over there and I go, you stay on that side. And I moved all the way over to the right. And I feel them sitting on the bed. Boom. And then bounce, bounce, bounce as the guy's rolling towards my back. And I'm going, this is weird. And all of a sudden, hits my spine. And it's like my Kundalini energy is supercharged. It's like shock waves, fireworks, electricity, static electricity, everything just. And I realized my body was heavier. And there's a part of me that finally realized that was the other me. One me sleeping in bed, and this other me out doing something for others. As incredulous as that may feel, be, and it was something I don't even know if I accepted. But it seemed apparent that whatever this thing was, the shadow man, he reunited in my spine with me. So the next day I'm telling my friend, and he kind of gives me like, okie dokie. So then he was having some issues with his family and his father and stuff. So I started giving him this advice, quote unquote advice. Oh, this is really good stuff. So I just kept going. And then he wanted to go to Lake Shrine, SRF's church there. And I said, yeah, that's a good idea. They have a good sermon that starts about 10 o'clock or 11, whatever. We'll go. So we drove there. We go inside, we sit down, and they had a monk deliver it. And normally the monk just reads it off, whatever's there. But this guy went off on a tangent on his own. And my friend keeps looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and we're looking at the monk. Exactly word for word of what I told that guy in the morning. The monk was giving it to me, to both of us. It was like, no, this was real. This will prove it. So that's some of the events surrounding that experience. Then, of course, the story I told you about having the surgery, and I end up physically someplace else during that surgery, and it wasn't an interdimensional trip. It wasn't a vision. It wasn't an out-of-body experience. It wasn't it was physically. My old body's here, other body's here functioning. One body's getting operated on, the other one's doing other stuff. So that's kind of the thing, and I don't fully understand how any of that works. And I was sitting around puzzled about that a few years ago. And I'm sitting on my sofa about sunrise at my house, and my cell phone rings. My calls me at sunrise in the morning, so I pick it up, I answer it. And it's some woman, I don't know if she was an official woman, or a lawyer, a DA, cop, whatever it was. She identified herself, but I thought it was a bad call. And she says, and I had the name of it. In fact, I got his file sitting here. Hang on a second. I pulled it out the other day. Joseph Francis Corey. And there's the killing of an officer, and there was all kinds of newspaper clippings and stories on this guy. But apparently, his whole life fell apart. He was a PTSD veteran. His marriage fell apart. His income dropped off to nothing. So he was getting nothing. He was fighting the VA for pension, I guess. So he lost his house. They were coming to foreclose on it. They were coming to kick him out. And when they were kicking him out, he had all these dogs. So they sent animal service, whatever they're called, animal control, to confiscate his dogs. So he sees them coming. The poor animal control guy knocks on the door, coming to take his dogs. And that was the straw that broke camel's back. And he takes his guns, and he just starts shooting through the door. And he kills this poor animal control guy. And that led to a 17-hour siege, standoff. They had SWAT teams from the Sheriff's Department, City of Galt, Highway Patrol. They had ambulances there. They had a whole neighborhood blocked off. I didn't know about any of that. That was happening about 10 miles from my house. I didn't watch the news. I had no clue what was going on. And it was 17 hours. Just got over. That's what this call was about. And she's trying to explain to me that he asked the authorities to call and thank Reverend Bill McDonald for bringing a peaceful solution to the siege. That he gave me credit for talking him out of shooting anymore and to surrender when they came in. And I'm listening to the lady thinking, okay, thank you, goodbye. And then I hung up on it, and then I turned on the morning news, and there's the story, and there's the Joseph guy, and the whole thing is there. I mean, had I been in more believable state, even I am kind of credulous. I go, I thought it was like, this is a weird call, even for me. But there was a case where some veteran, somebody I may have met, it sounds like I have met this guy at some point in time at some veterans event. Maybe I gave him a card, because I handle PTSD veterans, no charge, I counsel. So maybe he was somebody that saw me once upon a time and he kept my card for emergency help. But he never called me on the phone. But he insisted to the officers that he'd been in communication with me all night long. So I rest my case with that. I could give you more examples, but that's just adding more onto the pile. Bottom line is, I'm not sure exactly what all that means, but I know this. What you think you understand about the spiritual and the human self We don't. It's there's much that we don't understand, we don't know. And I don't waste a lot of time sitting down trying to figure this out and go through the book. And what is this? What do you call this? I don't try to analyze it. It happens and I go, okay, I'm glad he thought I was there for him. I'm glad these other people thought I was there for him and others. Um, so suicides, homicides, alcoholism, drug use, depression, just needing the comforting words. I've heard it all. But a part of me can't attest to any of the validness of any of that other than that shadow man merging with my spine. So I don't know. You got a question on that or you want me to go on? It's not even explainable by me. I just give you the facts, if those are facts.
Question with regard to that. I have glanced your books, which I borrowed from Danny, and I read that one lady came to you and said, "You are the reincarnation of Father Ignatius Loyola, the founder of Jesuit order." So, do you believe that? Do you think that you are the reincarnation of Father Ignatius Loyola? If so, do you remember anything which you have done on those days?
I,
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 I think a
I
lot,
think a lot.
we're getting bad sound here. Okay. I think a lot of people are hung up with who you were in a previous lifetime. So I don't try to go there. I just kind of casually mentioned that it was part of Father Jack's story. And people in Germany and around the world have made the same accusation. Do I know that for a fact? I got a lot of similar traits and things. I've been accused of being a lot of people over many years, including, being with Grunoff and all kinds of other things. It's not important. All of that, by me or anyone else, is always just speculation. You should either believe me or hate me or like me for who I am right now. Reverend Bill, I mean, I'm kind of a wild character as it is. But what was interesting about the St. Ignatius story is if you read his autobiography, St. Ignatius, which this priest assistant I read, and it was interesting because the book cover shows a guy about 40 some years old on there with a drawing of him. They look just like I did at 40 something. Same age. My wife thought it was, she goes, "Hey, somebody drew a picture of you." I go, no, that's St. Ignatius. She goes, "Wow, it looks just like you." So even my family said it looked like me. So, okay, there's that. And then there's the fact that when I was 19, I just felt driven to go to Europe. I had to go to Europe. And when I was in Europe, I went to all these different places in Spain and in Paris and Rome, to the Vatican and Switzerland and France and all over the place. I was traveling. There was a thing that I had to do. Later on, I read his book. Looked like I followed his trail, his own journey. And where he went, I kind of visited a lot of the same places, including the Vatican. In fact, when I was in the Vatican, I was 19 years old, and I met this Czechoslovakian guy who was bumming around Europe at the time. And we didn't know any better, and we didn't care. We just walked into the Vatican. We walked past the Swiss guards. We walked into where they had the ballots, on the little stove where they burned the ballots. And we walked in other doors. We went back to where the Pope lives in the compound. I walked into the Pope's house. Nobody saw me. We walk in. I'm looking at his closet, with all the robes, everything. I hung around for 2 hours. And then when I'm finally leaving, this Swiss guard sees me and they go crazy. But then he was kind of afraid to turn me in or do anything because it'd make it look like he wasn't doing his job because I obviously went past him, right, to get in. So we were kind of shown the exit. So anyway, the Vatican was very much at home. But the odd thing was I felt compelled is the word, mesmerized, pulled, entranced to go to the Notre Dame. It wasn't burnt back then as it is now, but it was a beautiful place with the beautiful roofs with the buttresses. And I had this desire to go in there, sneak through some window or somehow get up on top of that roof. And I did. I found a tower. Nobody was looking. I went up there. some stairs that nobody uses. I found a window, I got it open, climbed out on a ledge, kind of crawled across the ledge. I climbed up, and I was sitting, meditating for about 4 hours on top of the Notre Dame Church in Paris. When I read this book and I found out that that's what St. Ignatius Loyola used to do, I thought, well, that's an interesting coincidence. Plus, I became a vegetarian when I was a child. St. Ignatius became a vegetarian when he came back from the war. He was a soldier. He was a well-decorated soldier. And he got wounded in the leg, and when it healed, he had one leg slightly shorter than the other, the same exact leg that I was born with that's slightly shorter than the other. So there's probably 36 more things that all kind of, this priest was trying to show me all these things. You know, I go, okay, that is what it is. It's always important to focus on what we know for sure. I'll tell you an experience though, the past, maybe a past life, or maybe it was just me tuning in to somebody from a past life. That same trip when I was 19, I was leaving and I was staying with a French family. And this French family was there when they were younger, when the Nazis had occupied Normandy. And their house was right by the beach, right by the beaches. And they suffered through these terrorizing, you know, the artillery going, the machine guns and everything else. And then the American troops came up and they were so grateful that they were being freed from the Nazis that they wanted to reach out, you know, run up and grab all these American soldiers and say thank you. But everybody was in a big hurry to fight the war, to moving on. They didn't get a chance. So that's something that they regretted that they didn't do. And now I was there at 19 years old, and they were in their 70s, I think, at the time. They were retired professors at the university there in Le Havre. And they adopted me, their language, they adopted me as their token American, even though I wasn't a soldier yet. I wouldn't be a soldier for another half a year. But they adopted me as their token American, and they wanted to show me appreciation, and they gave me tours of the beaches. They gave me tours of the museums. They took me to the university. They were just so kind to me. They brought out this special wine. I don't drink wine, but it's a gift. I had to drink it. And they took me to this American cemetery where all these thousands of Americans are buried. I'm standing there in the cemetery, and all of a sudden, I'm on a landing craft coming towards the beach. There's explosions in the water. There's rounds flying over my head. I'm sitting I feel like I'm sitting, I should say. I feel like I am sitting in this landing craft. I feel everything that this individual soldier, and he wasn't a general or anybody famous, just a private, just a guy, a GI, sitting there in this craft, wanting to get ashore to win the war, to free France, to see Europe, to be a hero. And when the door comes down, one of the first guys shot was this guy. And I'm feeling the bullet. And I'm looking at the blood in the water, and I'm tumbling around, and I'm drowning in the surf. I feel like it is me drowning in the surf. Whether it's me just identifying with this spirit and we're one, it actually felt like if there ever was a reincarnation, this had to be it. Nobody famous. Guy wanted to be a hero, didn't get a chance to be a hero. He's killed. He's buried. Nobody comes to visit him. He's just there. No honor. When I saw that vision, I felt his pain, and I felt his desire to be a hero and to fight and to do good. So I honored him with a prayer on the beach that day. Wherever he was, if he was me, if he was just a reflection of someone else, or the essence of all those there. That's the closest I've come to saying yes. I've had swamis and gurus and other people tell me that I've been certain people and done certain things. To me, I've had a naughty palm reading. They told me I was different people. It's, who are you now? Don't get hung up on past life readings. Who are you now? Don't get hung up on future life readings. Who are you now? There's only now. So right now, I'm enjoying this state of ignorance. This little fat Irishman is perfectly happy just being a storyteller. Here I am. Okay, Danny, you got any questions at that end? I could go on stories after stories, but
Question is, with regard to this subject, when I glance through your book, I understand that Yogi Gurunath is the rather ambassador or doing the same thing as Sri Yukteswar. Whereas in the autobiography of a yogi, I read that Sri Yukteswar is in Hiranyaloka helping people in Hiranyaloka. So how can a person who is in the realm of Hiranyaloka at the same time helping people in the physical planet? I can't understand, or rather I'm ignorant. So would you like to enlighten us about that?
okay. I think I understand the questions. I couldn't quite hear it all. In fact, Danny, why don't you give me the screen so I can see who I'm talking to? That makes it a little bit easier, then I can read their lips and see their body language. But it sounds like this. You read the part in the book where I speculate or talk about Shiva and Yogaraj, right? And how could Yogaraj, which talks about the autobiography of Yogi, how could he and Shiva be here when he's supposed to be there? Now I'll go back to my original stories when I started this, where I talk about two body experiences. Don't you think the great masters can be at 2, 3, multiple places at once? Number one. Number two, I think it's possible that we can take on more than one body, great souls. I'm just saying that. So Yogaraj, born on the birth date of Sivateshwar, there's kind of a vague physical similarity to the two. And people, when they meditate around Gurunath, all come away with visions and images of Sivateshwar. I have personally seen Sivateshwar alive and standing next to me at his ashram, witnessed by others. And so in my mind, it's beyond not impossible. It's very likely. So I don't ask anybody to believe that. I tell people, it matters not. Gurunath is who he is right now. That's good enough. That's good enough. If you wish to see these other attributes and who he was in a past lifetime, that's your choice. I wouldn't discourage anybody, but I'm just saying, focus on the now. But I've seen so much evidence that tells me there's something much greater afoot that was going on with Yogaraj and Sivateshwar. And for those that don't know who Sivateshwar is, if you look at that picture behind me, that's Yogananda, his guru. His guru was Sivateshwar. And so what was interesting is when I met Gurunath for the first time in Berkeley, of all places, and I told him, hey, look, I'm not looking for a guru. I got one. I got Paramahansa Yogananda. He says, I love Yogananda. I love him. No problem. He'd be my BFF. I said, great. A couple years later, we got an invitation, Gurunath and I and 3 or 4 other people, to go to Self-Realization Fellowship Mother Center on Mount Washington, where we were entertained by 3 of the monks there and were shown around. And they took us upstairs and let us meditate, just us, in Paramahansa's bedroom. And I watched Gurunath just glow. I mean, there was such a love there for Yogananda. It was like love. So whatever's there, again, it's always about love. Hope that answered your question.
The next question is about the Mercury Shiva Linga, which you have seen and you have experienced before that meditating. So, what exactly is that, or what is the origin of that? What is it, a quartz crystal thing? You explained to us it's a 1 ton, so it may be a huge one. So I would like to know a little more about your experience with that. From where did it originate? Where did it come? Because it is not mentioned in Autobiography of a Yogi or any other book except in your book. So I'm curious to know a little more about that.
Are we talking about the Shiva, the
Yeah.
solid mercury Shiva?
Yes.
At the, I didn't understand any of that when I went to the ashram the first time. Shiva temples, I didn't know exactly what was in a Shiva temple. I mean, I should have. I mean, I'm an adult. That wasn't my inclination. And if you follow Self-Realization Fellowship, most people in SRF, they don't know much about Lord Shiva. They don't know anything about Brahma. They don't know anything about any of that, really, unless they've explored it on their own. But when I got to India, to the temple at the ashram outside of Pune, I mean, it says it's in Pune, but it's really like, it's miles and miles and miles away in the jungle in a little valley. So it's not exactly in the city, but it's out there. I didn't understand the significance of this big shivling. And I'm talking about big. I'm talking about over 2,000 some pounds. They had to take part of the roof off, get a crane out there in the jungle, and a crane lifted this shivling and to put it inside to balance it and everything. It is the world's largest solid mercury shivling. In other words, mercury is this fluid type stuff, flows around. Through alchemy, they're able to make it solid. And you see, there's little solid ones you can buy here and there, but I'm talking over 200, 2,200 pounds plus. And it's shining and it's vibrating. I mean, vibrating with energy. When you meditate around it, it's one of the more beautiful experiences. I don't care if you're looking for temples in India, if you're not visiting that temple and meditating there, you're missing a great opportunity. It's one of a kind. But I didn't understand it. And I'll go back to why I say I didn't understand. I went there, I said, okay, I'll meditate around this. Everybody's talking about having seen great things in this thing and all that. So I'd meditate. I go, well, I complained to somebody. I think it was Jay Ponte, a friend of mine. I go, Jay, how come I don't see anything? He says, well, you got to look at it. You got to open your eyes. It's not close your eyes, meditate. Meditate it, on it, focus on it. And when I did, I saw Jesus. I saw Gurdjieff. I saw saints and sages of all religions, all kinds of them. I saw an owl in there. I saw a lion in there. I saw beautiful things in there. As real as any holographic gram you ever see at Disney World, like the haunted house. It was like that. It was like holographic vision inside this cylinder. I was sitting there one day and I was looking at it after a long meditation, and I'm seeing a figure of humans. They're moving, and there's like 6, 7, 8 of them. They're kind of moving around trying to look at me through this thing. And they looked like their bodies were shaped like the heads that you see in pictures of those on Easter Island. In other words, everybody thinks that Easter Island is kind of like modern art or some kind of art form. No, that's exactly what these guys look like. They look like the heads, like tiki gods type things that you see in the Pacific. It's exactly what they looked at. I thought, oh, this is really crazy. What a thing to see. So I kept my mouth shut. I went that afternoon. We were working on publishing one of Gurdjieff's books. Can't remember which one, but we were working on it. We went to the printer, and it was me and Jay Pawnee and some other young guy. That's under the assumption I was young. Not so young. Anyway, and Gurdjieff, being a good guy, after we did all this work on the book, he goes, "Come, boys." And he takes us to this place where we could get milkshakes and cookies in India, right? Milkshakes and cookies, right? American milkshakes and cookies. It was just a nice treat. But we're sitting around there. Jay mentions that when he was sitting in the thing that morning with me, that he saw this thing, and He starts talking about these. I said, wait a minute, do they look like the heads on Easter Island? He goes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what they look like. So that evening, Gordon was sitting around the sacred fire. He kind of asked for a show of hands if anybody sitting around the temple that day had seen anything. There was like 8 guys put their hands up, including me and Jay. And he says, what'd you see? And all 8 of us gave the same description. Easter Island heads. So is that mass hypnotism? There was no suggestion ever that's what we were going to see. I could believe if somebody suggested it and then we kind of all imagined it, like you look at the clouds, you see something, we all kind of see it. It wasn't that. It was all individually, and everybody was keeping it to themselves because we were, not so sure. We didn't want to look foolish because it was such a weird thing to see. Another month or so later, I'm there and I'm looking in there and I see 2 monks in orange robes, a younger one. I don't know who was a young lad or a woman, but shaved head, and an older one with shaved head. And they were looking at me, trying to give me instructions or something. I kept looking at them. I don't know who these guys are. I have no clue. I'd never seen them before in my entire life. I go, this is really odd. I mean, usually I get some idea. So I left there, and I went down to the ashram office where I was helping out. In a lost and found, somebody had left a book, a brand new book, it looked like an autograph. It could have been printed from the printer, but it looked almost like an autograph. And on the cover of this book was those 2 monks. And it was called A Guru-Disciple Relationship, which is a beautiful book. And I picked it up, and it was just about your relationship with your guru. It was wonderful advice. And I said, you know what? This book's mine. Nobody came back for it. I said, that's it. I'm taking it. It's mine. If they want it, I'll pay them for it. It's mine. But it was the same exact people that I just saw there. And the book, when I opened it up, I was the first person to you ever open a brand new book when it's just never been, pages had never been opened? It was brand new. So, yeah, it's a powerful thing. And be careful what you wish for, what you think about after. You think about something, you bring it to fruition. You materialize it. There's great powers there, which I'll talk about another time, but there's powers there. So once you're really careful around it.
We got a question.
Yeah, I've got a question. I think maybe I'm looking for some advice or for some direction, or I don't know, maybe a to-do list, or what would you recommend? We're just starting out trying to really get in touch with our higher selves. And, in the daily minutia of having to work and clean up the dog backyard, and, you squeeze in trying to read a book or, think early in the morning before you get started on everything else coming at you. I want some of that magic that you've been describing. I don't know when this started for you. And I mean, it's obvious that you have been around the world and, sat with and learned from and read probably everything there is to read. But, maybe I'm a little late in the game starting. Like I said, I want some of that magic to happen even more. So I understand what you think about, you bring about both ways. You think negatively, which was unfortunately the first part of my life, and all of that unlearning that I'm doing now. Now I am conscious of my thoughts, and be careful what you ask for, you just might get it. It has happened to me many, many times. So I want to bring about some more of this magical experiences with people and with elements and with things, and I can do for you and you can do for me, those sorts of transactions. But like I said, life gets in the way. Real life is like my whole life, and I would like either a little direction on how to get a little more magic, I suppose. How do you balance, tip the scales for that really amazing stuff to start flowing in?
Okay. First off, there's no too late. It's never too late because it's always when? Now, right? It's always now. There's no yesterday, there's no tomorrow. It's all in the now. So when you start, when you think you start, you've already started. The fact that you're a seeker means you spent thousands of lifetimes and years asking these questions, searching. Maybe your search has taken you to dead ends, didn't find it in marriage, didn't find it in money, didn't find it in war, didn't find it through whatever, in material wealth, whatever aspect you were looking for came up empty. So you reach this lifetime and you're saying, wait a minute, it's got to be more than material. It's got to be something else worthwhile. You call it magic. I call it love. Seek love. That's the greatest magic. So in the beginning, whatever the beginning is for you, and I'm telling you right now, that's not your beginning. You've already been rolling. But in the conscious beginning, you have to read. That will stir on the inspiration to go farther. And it gives you some ideas, some knowledge. And then you want to hang around people of like mind, people that are strivers, seekers. If you want to get in shape, you go to the gym. Who do you hang around with? You look at the guy that's working out and he's doing really good. He's got Arnold Schwarzenegger type body. That's the guy you want to follow. Of course, if you're a woman, maybe not so. But you find somebody that's in shape, right? So you find out what they're doing, what's working for them, what's their diet. It's the same thing spiritually. Start hanging around with people that stimulate that inner journey for you, that feeds your spiritual hunger. So that may mean associating with different peoples over different decades. You start off at one level, then you move on to another level, and you start shedding people, and you got new people, and you got new ideas. Never close the door on learning something new or different. Don't ever get someplace to say, now I'm there, I don't need any more. If you walk around with a full cup, you'll never be able to taste any other beverage. So if you walk around with a full cup of coffee, you'll never taste Coke or orange juice, right? You got to empty once in a while and see what the universe is going to give you. So in your particular case, you're doing the right thing. You come to these meetings, you meet some people that, honestly, there's some people there that have very stimulating spiritual consciousnesses. If you hang around them, you'll learn something from them. But you'll never learn more than you can learn from your own self. In other words, you could study, you can read books, you can memorize passages, you can understand all these things from the Bhagavad Gita and the Bible. But if you haven't applied it to your life, you have no wisdom. All you have is knowledge. So in your quest to discover things, yes, you'll attain some knowledge. But I'm telling you, if you're an idiot, if you love God, you're going to find God. Right? I know I'm an idiot, so come on. So you don't have to have a unique knowledge base. So, but starting off, find a teacher, find a master if you can, find a Sadguru if you can. Find somebody that resonates with you. There's thousands of choices out there. Not everybody is supposed to follow the same one. Each guru will bring certain qualities out of us, different kind of followers. Find something that fits. Honestly, self-realization fellowships, good path. Ananda's a good path. Hamsa Yoga, good paths. There's a lot of great paths out there. Pick one that suits you socially, spiritually, mentally, and something that's compatible with your beliefs. I found that some people, especially if you're a Westerner, if you try to go all Indian or all Eastern, your whole background of culture kind of works against it. The language, the chants, everything. So sometimes that's why Yogananda's self-realization fellowships kind of works, because it's adapted to the Western thinking. And they got Jesus on the altar, and they tie it together. It's all one. the message really is the same. It's about Kriya Yoga. It's about learning a Kundalini raising energy meditation. A lot of good meditations out there. And ultimately, I think I talked about this last week, but they all work. All the meditations work. But just like a good roadmap will get you to New York, but GPS will, line you right up, right? So Kriya Yoga's like having GPS versus an old folding map. It'll get you there, straight forward. And one thing about Kriya Yoga is when you practice that, the incoming, the outgoing breath up and down the spine, you're burning past karma and you're creating good future karma. And you're doing all that in the now. So while you do this in the now, you're changing both your past and your future. So that's how you advance. Since everything's in the now, you can change the past. And that will lessen what you have to go through today for your karmic repercussions. So I would start off, if you haven't read Autobiography of a Yogi, read it. If you haven't read any of those great books by the saints and sages, I mean, Yogaraj, his book, Wings to Freedom, and his better one, Babaji Lightning Standing Still, great books. My book does nothing, but for entertainment, if you just want to be inspired, you can read Alchemy, that's a great book, or my Warrior book, they're great. Those are inspirational, but that's inspirational. These other books are deeper. You want to read something that's going to give you something at a little different level. Mine's entertainment. So it is not until you take the effort and you go within meditating. When you meditate, that's when you get knowing, not knowledge, you get knowing. That's when wisdom comes, not knowledge. It's a difference. So if you're not meditating in the morning and at night, start off, 10 minutes, if that's all you can do in the morning and night. Start to increase it out. If you can do an hour in the morning, an hour at night, that's great. If you got a busy schedule with kids, work it around the best you can. If you can get one night a week where you can do longer, great. But it's about consistencies. If you're not meditating now when you're young, it's not going to happen when you're in your 70s. It's a lot more difficult. You got a lot more aches and pains and arthritis and everything else and habits. So start building the habits. If you can meditate for 7 years, you build a habit. It's going to stick with you. But the benefits, physically, mentally, and spiritually, it's great. You say, you're looking for magic. I say, don't seek magic, just seek love. All these other gifts. Seek first the kingdom of God. Everything else comes to you, right? So in meditation, it's about your love affair with the divine. Go into meditation, loving God. That's why you're there, not to gain knowledge, wisdom, enlightenment, anything. I mean, all noble stuff, but don't go for anything other than just to love. When you give love away, the divine will shower you with love in return, more than you gave. So start off reading, associating with groups like the group you're in. That's a good group. Self-Realization Fellowship, Hamsa group. All these groups are good out there. If you find somebody on YouTube, go explore YouTube videos. There's some wonderful gurus lectures on there. Find somebody's personality traits and what he's saying resonates with you. Look at Yogaraj's. If his stuff resonates with you, great. If you look at some other guru and it resonates with you, great. Because that's your choice. Nobody can tell you, here's the only way. Here's who you got to go see. Here's what you got to do. Run from anybody that tells you they got the answers. Nobody has all the answers. And each of us has a different question, and there's many different answers. So for you being the seeker, just watch what you think, watch what you say, watch what you do, watch what you read, watch what you listen to. Those make who you are, what you are. So if you're reading holy spiritual things, if you're meditating, if you're serving and loving, great. These things will feed your souls, will feed your heart. If you're watching pornography, if you're lustful, if you're doing drugs, if you're doing alcohol, if you're eating heavy meat, if you're doing all these other things, you got anger and hate, you're not going to get too far in your meditation. It's going to hold you back. So this thing has to be a mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, a three-road journey. You got to take all three roads, all three paths: physical, mental, and spiritual. Take care of the body temple. Watch what you eat. Take exercise. Take care of it. Treat it right. And that includes your thoughts about your body, because you can make yourself sick and you make yourself well. Take care of your mind. Feed your mind good stuff. Read good things. Watch good movies, inspiring things. Go to lectures. Watch YouTube videos that are inspiring. And then meditation. That's it. If you just do all of one and not all three, or two and not all three, then you're never going to be totally balanced. The progression will be hard. I hope that helps you.
I have a question. Is Kriya Yoga and the Kundalini Kriya Yoga one and the same, or is it different?
There's a lot of Kundalini meditations, Kriya Yoga, and there's probably about 4 or 5 different versions of it. But basically, it's about visualizing and feeling energy, light, and even hot and cold going up and down your spine, chanting, for the upcoming breath, the downgoing breath, and focusing on that. You're visualizing moving this energy, and when your visualization becomes so real, so immersed as a part of you, that your visualization is like visualizing you're moving an object and the object moves. It's the same thing. You're visualizing this stuff happen, and you're bringing it about. So visualization is important. Internally chanting is important. The more of your physical senses that you can get involved in this meditation, the better. But Kundalini energy is what Kriya Yoga is all about. There are others that do it in different ways, and some of the some of the other meditations out there that aren't so highly evolved, supposedly, they'll move it to a different degree. But we're talking about the difference between doing the other meditations, and you got a little tiny flashlight battery, and now you're doing the Kriya Yoga, which is a power generator. I mean, it's not a little battery; it's a big room generator. So it's all about energy power. So everything you could do to help that meditation, meaning, let's go back to the diet. If you're eating heavy meat and you're lustful and you're angry or you're depressed, these things are going to make your meditation less dynamic. Meditate anyway. Give it a shot. All efforts count for some. But you're not going to quite open that door. You're knocking on it, but you're not going to quite open that door until you get rid of the anger, get rid of the lust, get rid of all those poisons within you. And just realize love. You are made of love. God's love, your love, we're all love. Once you see the oneness of all that, then it really matters not what meditation technique you're doing. You're in love with God. It's all going to work whatever you do.